Okay, I think we're live now, so hello everybody. And make sure the sound is working fine. That looks good. And what about the microphone? We're not hearing the microphone. Is that okay? It looks like it's working. Don't know why it's not showing up in my. There it is. Okay. So I'll be playing a couple of rapid games with Christopher Day, who is from the Maritimes. He currently resides in Vietnam. So it'll be, I believe, 9 p.m. for him. It's 11 a.m. here for me. We had played or crossed paths many, many moons ago. Probably 30 years ago now. Close to 30 years. So anyway, he reached out and it'll be good to play a couple of games. So he's running a little late, which isn't a problem. We'll wait for him, and in the meantime, I'll enjoy my coffee, and we'll also watch some Lee Chess TV, some current games that are being played. Okay, well, white is up a piece in this position. Yeah, that's why black resigned. All right, we're going to see a start of a game. D3. Either that's a mouse slip or it's an anti-positional opening. Now black, currently it says that they are not online. Looks like they're from Philippines. Well, we'll check in with that one a little later. Let's check one of the classical games. Okay, this one is going to end soon. Well, it looks like black is making some progress here. But how do they get the victory? If king here, then the queen is going to harass the king. And you can't trade queens because that would be a drawn king and pawn endgame. So that's the trick here, is black has to find a way to trade the queens and have a winning king and pawn endgame. So, oh, pardon me, I'm looking at it from black's perspective. Okay. Yeah, it might help if I look at the board correctly. So black is going this way. Whoop, going this way. Yeah, so this would be a terrible move because the king would just take the queen. Okay, so what should... Yeah, that's a good move. So this should be a win because black has the king in front of the pawn. So the king will be able to support the pawn if the queens were to be traded. White has one check available. I suspect black will just block with their queen. Yeah, this one is looking like it'll be a victory for black. Let's check in on that other game, see if they've actually started. No. Okay, well, good thing we didn't stay and wait. And there we go. We've got the queen blocking. Oh, wait a minute now. Are we not online? Oh, it says we're online. How come my uptime isn't working? Do I have it on? No, I don't have it on emotes only. Okay, no, it does show that I'm online. Not sure why uptime command didn't work. Oh, maybe I typed it wrong. Up time. There we go. All right, black is checking the white king. Yeah, this is, I guess, white's attempt is to stay in front of the black king and try to pester the king with some checks. There's still some work to be done, but black, this is winning for black. The good thing for black is that the white king is so far away. Be a little more difficult if the king were, say, in front of the pawn here. So black has to somehow get the pawn rolling. Okay, this wouldn't be a bad idea because if white were to check here, black would block and it would be a check. So that would force the queens off. Now, white also had this check, but I would have gone for that move anyway because you're allowing your opponent to make a mistake. You're giving them the opportunity. That's what chess is all about. Okay, I would suspect queen here. But then queen here. And maybe we move the king up. Okay, white's decided to try this. Sorry, black has decided to try that. What's going on after check here? King in the front. And the queen goes back. Yeah, it's never easy when there's a queen involved. Okay, this allows the pawn to be pushed. That's why I would have chosen this check instead. But yeah, if you're able to push the pawn and block the check at the same time, it's advantageous. So now the only check would be here, after which you could block with the queen, and then the only check is here, after which you could block with the pawn. So by those maneuvers, black will have moved their pawn 2 squares, so black would have been making progress. Okay, yeah, I don't like that attempt. White is going to try to continue to harass that black king. Yeah, where does the black king go? That's the big Q. Comes here, there's a check there. Comes here, there's a check there. And then here, here, and maybe there. Right. Yeah, so the black should be thinking, how can I align the king against white's queen such that I can advance the pawn to block any checks? There has been some missed opportunities by black. I wonder, can black go up? Well, we're going to find out. Check here, check here, check back. That's the problem. Your king is too far from the pawn. Go check here, check. Probably here. Check here. Check here. Yeah, it's still tricky. I think you got to bring the king back closer to the pawn so that I can act as a blockade against white's checks. So if we go here, check. Okay, they're going to block with the queen. But you're still going to have the problem here. And if the queen goes back, well, queen just comes back here, right? So I don't see how black is making progress here. Just kind of circling around. Okay, what about here? Queen there. Yeah, it's still not clear to me how black is going to be able to push that pawn again. Okay, what about... Okay. Right, it's black's move. White can't do two moves in a row. All right. So you got to set it up such that there's the only check that white can deliver can be blocked by the pawn. So I guess I'd start with this, and then check. Yeah. here, goes back here, goes back. Yeah, then here, such that when there's a check here, you can block with the queen, and then you can block a side check with a pawn push. I know that was a lot of arrows, but probably made it a little more confusing, but that's what you want to do. You want to be able to move that pawn to block the check. And I think maybe black has the idea now. Oh, I guess if you go here, though, there's the check right there, which is kind of annoying. But in that instance, no, I think you're fine there, actually. Oh, a threefold repetition. Oh, what a pity. What a pity. Oh, that was interesting. I wonder if there's a way. Yeah, here we go. Let's click on that. And let's, can we do an analysis? So what I was thinking here was if black comes here, there's check, block, and then check, and there you go. There's that push. So there's progress made. Now the question is, after here, what if white comes here? So you block with the queen. If there's a check here, you've got push. And if you go with this check, you block. And now you're ready. Well, still not that easy because of this. But maybe here. And then if here, here. Now you're ready to push because the only check available is this, which means you block with the pawn. Okay, so Chris is ready, so we're going to play. And here we go. So we've got Mini Karpov against Not Fischer. So everybody wanted to see Karpov and Fischer play. This is the best that you can get. Okay, I did message Chris. Let him know that he's ready to play. And here we go. Okay, well, I have been dabbling with the King's Gambit. Do I play the King's Gambit in this rapid game, or do I keep it as a blitz opening? Well, I think at the very least, the King's Gambit makes things interesting. And Chris decides to play what's known as the Falk Beer Counter Gambit. It's a common reply. Now, had he played e4, that would have still been the Falk Beer. Since he's captured, this is now called the modern defense of the King's Gambit. And as far as I know, the modern defense of the King's Gambit is rather popular. Popular ways for black to confront this opening from white. Now I just have to remember my theory. I think d4 makes a lot of sense, just establishing a pawn in the center. So we'll do that. And we're also threatening to capture that pawn. Now, generally black takes with the knight. I mean, you could consider playing it like a Scandinavian, but then after knight c3, you've got that tempo against the queen. So that's why most times black does take with the knight. So I could play c4 to kick the knight, kind of like the Scandinavian. I'm just not so sure about after this. And we could take. Just not sure about the vulnerability of my center there. It's because I haven't had a lot of experience playing c4 in this position. What I normally do is play bishop c4, and the difference between that move and the pawn move is that if black does go here, well, the bishop lines up against the f7 pawn, and when I castle, along with the knight, yeah, there's a lot of pressure on f7, basically is what I'm trying to say. So that's what we're going to choose. And bishop e6. Good reply. So a lot of times white does give up this good bishop for that knight. And it's for tempo gaining purposes because you develop your knight on c3 and you hit either the queen or black's bishop. So you develop without loss of time. So I could just simply grab the pawn. I'm just considering castling. What's the consequences of castling? So knight e3. Could take, but then they would have the option of taking here, which gets a little messy. See, they'd be attacking my rook. My bishop on e3 would be attacked by the pawn here. So if I wanted to play castles, knight e3, I think I'd have to try to throw in this check. Then after c3, c6 takes, and then black has the option as to which bishop they want to take. But I'm just going to take the knight, which is the common thing to do. And I think I'll just take back on f4 next move. Again, if the queen takes, then we get that tempo, that Scandinavian tempo. Although I suppose, I mean, there is bishop b4. Yeah, so I think I'll castle first, actually, so that when I do play knight c3, I'm not pinned. I think that one makes more sense to me. Just a matter of, do I want to take this now? Well, looks like I can't. If I take that now, I'm going to lose it because queen e4 hits the king and forks the bishop on f4. So makes sense to castle. I'm still down a pawn, but I've got a lead in development, and that's one of the things that you get as compensation for the material as white. You get active play. So for instance, black's king is still in the center, while my king is castled. So if black isn't careful, and it doesn't get their king castled soon, my pieces are ready to attack in the center. the rook e1 will line it up with the king, for example. Bishop d6, maybe to hold on to the pawn. Then I got knight c3 kicking the queen. And then I don't know, queen h5. Then I could play d5, getting a tempo on the bishop. Bishop g4, rook e1 check. And black would have to decide whether or not to move the king or to block with the dark squared bishop. G5 is common for black. It's a common move to hold on to that pawn. Don't know if that's what you want to do in this particular position, though. That would be risky, I would think, because again, king is in the center. Black still has some pieces that are left to be developed. And g5, while it does protect this pawn, it actually creates some weaknesses in black's position. But that being said, we live in the modern world where computers have shown us that things are concrete. They either work or they don't work. That's why you sometimes get some fantastic ideas from the computer that a human would never have thought of. But I think in this instance, I'm coming with d5. Those are two big tempo moves. Rook e1 is check. Don't think that is in black's best interests. So bishop d6 perhaps, bishop e7. And, maybe black can prophylactically move the queen so that knight c3 isn't coming with tempo. Because the thing with knight c3 is not only am I hitting the queen, I'm ready to play d5 hitting hitting the bishop, pardon me. Curious if c6 is possible here. It feels a little slow. It's not really going with chess principles. It doesn't help develop any pieces, but it does after knight c3 queen move. d5 is not as intimidating because the pawn is influencing that square. But I'm just curious if a move like queen f5 or queen h5 now would be more prudent for black. Probably just queen h5 and I'll take the pawn back. I could also consider after queen h5 just knight c3 with the idea of d5. Then we could get some really fun positions happening if black tries to go with this all-out kingside pawn storm. But I think if it was me, I'd go queen h5 here and then try to get this bishop developed, or the knight, one of them, so that I could castle next move, be it queenside or kingside. Because again, that's the thing with this knight c3 move. I'm tempoing the queen, but then next move I'm also tempoing the bishop. Which may not be... Okay. So knight c3. So Chris has found a nice idea. So knight c3, let's say queen h5, d5 does fork those two pieces, but like the Scandinavian, black can play castles and the rook pins the pawn. So very nice idea by Chris. Playing this like a Scandi. Now I'm under no obligation, of course, to push after knight c3. I'm under no obligation to play knight c3. That is the thing. I do play the Scandinavia myself. I don't play this particular way, generally, where you castle queenside and put pressure on d4, but it can be a bit of an issue for white if the knight goes to c3, because then the pawn here is not protected by a pawn. So that's why I'm thinking about just taking here, and yes, castling puts a lot of pressure on d4, but maybe I simply play c3 and bolster that pawn. It's just a matter of judging how important is this tempo for me. I'd also have to deal with the idea of queen f5 instead of queen h5, because queen f5 also protects the pawn here. So I think in the interest of time, I don't want to spend too much time. It's only a 15-10 game, of course. I think bishop takes pawn would be the prudent thing to do. I'm just wondering if can they play knight takes d4 here? That's interesting, because then knight takes, castles, c3, c5. Okay, well, I guess at the end of that we'd have equal material. I think that'd be all right. I mean, the other way that black could do it would be here, here, bishop here, c3, even maybe bishop e3. Yeah, that's an interesting move, actually. If I go here, here, knight e2, kind of multi-purpose. Solidify d4 and also another attacker on f4. Okay, let's get on with it. Like I said, you sometimes have to make practical decisions, especially when you're playing a timed game. Yeah, most people don't take back here with the queen. I'm used to the bishop being on d5, so I'll have to check this line after the game. See whether or not we've played it correctly or not. I suppose if he does go knight takes d4, I'm under no obligation to take on d4 either. I could take on c7. Could also just play knight c3 and develop a piece. Now, he'd be able to trade. I would be down a pawn there, but I would have the active pieces. Okay, well, I think Chris played the most natural move, castling, get the king into safety. Makes a lot of sense. All right, so now I think let's just solidify with c3. Otherwise, I don't see how I'm going to hold on to d4. I think I've got to play a move like c3. And so this is different than the Scandi, because like I said, the Scandinavian white normally already has the knight on c3. And so this pawn is not protected by a pawn. And so black has this incredible pressure. But it's different when the pawn is here, because the pawn supports its sibling. So what does black have in terms of their, I don't want to say advantages, but what do they have going in their position? Well, they've got the two bishops. Which is one thing I don't have because I gave up my light squared bishop. And generally, you want to keep the two bishops, so I don't see bishop d6 as a possible move because that will allow me to eliminate the two bishops. So if this bishop is going to develop, I would expect it either here or to g7 at some point. So bishop to e7 is a move that makes sense to me. The other thing about bishop to e7, it supports an advance of g5 as well. If black is thinking about a kingside pawn storm. There we go. So this is always an uncomfortable pin for white. So I'm curious if I can play like queen c1 just to get out of the pin and also to exert some more influence on the g5 square. But I don't think I'm going to be able to stop g5 because after queen c1 they could just play h6 anyway. So I think g5 is coming at some point anyway. Might make, whoa, let's not move the queen like that. It might make more sense bringing the queen towards the king. g5, just come back perhaps. The only thing is now black is slightly better developed if I play the queen out. Is there any danger to take the knight out first? Here, here, here. I suppose I can go there. That looks all right. Or does it? Because they could take, I take back, 8 f6, I go back, and then maybe c5, and they're attacking here. The thing I don't like about the knight here is that if this file opens, that knight might be vulnerable. That's why I'm thinking about kind of going like this. I might just go knight c3. It'll give me the option to solidify d4 with knight c2, and also maybe just come up here at some point. Okay, yeah, let's go knight a3. I'm not really concerned. I mean, this is a doubling of pawns, which, you know, when we first learn about double pawns, you know, we have this thinking that, oh, double pawns are always bad. Well, in this instance, yeah, they're bad in an end game, but in the middle game, you got to think of what it gives me. It gives me an open b file, and black no longer would have the two bishops. So there's some pros and cons. And so by allowing black the opportunity to double my pawns, I'm basically saying that I'm willing to trade that weakness for the open b file and the elimination of the two bishops. I could be a little careful. I mean, this a2 pawn could be vulnerable if I ever move my rook. suppose one thing about knight a3 is it does support a potential c4 push. Of course, I got to get my queen out of this line, because if I go c4, I can follow it up with d5, but again, I'm not threatening to take anything because I'd lose the queen. So I'd like to move the queen off of the d file. Queen a4 makes a lot of sense, just to put some pieces over near black's king. Maybe there should be some attacking opportunities. Queen e2 is also a logical idea. Just keeping the queen centralized so that it could go to either the queen side or the king side. Queen e1 perhaps as well. Okay, Chris has decided to go for that. I'm a little surprised. I don't think that's best for black, but because that bishop really does a good job of supporting pawn storm on the king side. So I feel like that takes away the punch of a king side attack. That being said, the game still needs to be played. So who knows what will happen? We shall find out. Okay, so Chris is going, okay, that's a nice idea. Wants to put the knight here. That's a nice spot for the knight. It's a nice outpost because the knight can't get kicked. Now that my pawn is no longer on b2, I can't play b3 to evict the knight. So I could go knight d2 just with the simple idea of taking that when the knight hops in. I'm curious if the idea is to play c5 right away, opening up the d file, which I don't really like. I'd like to have my queen off of here so that I can meet c5 with a possible, well, capture, or even just leave it there. Okay, I'm going to play queen a4. I think that's the most logical move here. If knight c4, then I'll grab on a7. Can't play queen c4 because then I'd grab the knight. The queen is holding on to the knight, so what does black do? King b8, maybe to support the a pawn. Feels a little slow. c5 is double-edged, right? Because, yeah, it attacks my center, but it also opens things up towards the black king. I mean, white doesn't really have an immediate attack. I mean, it's going to take quite a few moves to get going, so maybe that gives black time to play h6 and g5, or maybe even just rook g8 here, followed by g5. It's nice to have the rook lined up with the king. Rook g8 seems like a good idea. So I'm looking at rook to b1. Rooks belong on open files, they say. And the other thing about rook b1 is it threatens, okay, doesn't threaten a thing because of bishop to d7. Nice move. Nice move. So now I have to do something. So I either bring the queen back or queen b4. Either way, black is going to be able to play knight here. Well, I feel like queen b4 is more active. Also defends this pawn, so that on knight c4. Not that I should be too concerned about that pawn. It's a nice maneuver though, because now black has the idea of, in the future, maybe going bishop to c6 and be some pressure on that diagonal. So if knight c4, I could play knight e5, just with the simple idea of evicting that knight. So that is a powerful square. Of course, I could just also ignore it because if I go rook b1, which was an original idea, there could be a5 here, which seems a little nutty, of moving your pawns in front of your king. It's a little disruptive though for white. Queen b3, a4. Yeah, maybe that's not so good for black. I mean, knight e5 would prevent a4 because then I can take here. So we would have an opposite colored bishop situation. Bishop c6, I'd have to go rook f2 just to cover here. And then we would have a very interesting middle game. I don't know if I should really be overly concerned about this because it does move pawns in front of the king. I always have the option of coming this way too. Are there any other moves that I could consider? I don't think so. Okay, it is going to be, we're going to get some time pressure here. So generally when you get lower on time, it's a good idea to trade some pieces. So let's go knight e5 to trade off that knight. Well, either the knight or the bishop here. I can't imagine black would like to give up that bishop. I think this would be a very powerful diagonal. So now this rook is purely for defensive purposes. f6 makes sense just to evict the bishop. Otherwise, I could consider c4 next move because the bishop and pawn are supporting each other. Actually, if f6, maybe I can go play that right away. But then queen e6, d5, queen takes e5, I take here. Then my rook in the corner hangs. Don't want to do that. Do not want to lose rook in the corner. So I guess it's just a matter of which square do I want to go back to. What about this? So c4, queen e6, d5, queen takes e5, rook e1. It looks really risky, but maybe just queen d6 there, and they trade the queens off. Yeah, that's probably not doing much. Okay, let's just bring the bishop back. Yeah, the only problem about the rook here is now I'm vulnerable to some potential checks on e1. Can I... I don't know if I can get the pawn rolling here or not. Hmm. Yeah, this is an unfortunate rook. So here, what about here? Yeah, then I wouldn't be able to play c4 because that would hang. Thing is, I'm concerned about this and then here, pinning the rook. Maybe that's not such a huge deal, though. Okay, well, I think this is the logical move here, so that rook wasn't doing anything, so let's give it a job. Okay, that's a nice idea, just trading the queens. I think Chris has a similar idea that you're down on the clock, so you want to simplify the position. The only thing is, I think that allows me to advance my center, and I will also fix my pawns. So let's do this. Okay, I don't think I had much going on in the previous position, but now I feel like I've got a slight edge just because I've improved my pawns, or black improved my pawns. Now look, it's not checkmate because I'll bring my rook back. So we've got, very nice move. Okay, if I advance, he's going to grab that one. So I probably have to play this one. Note how the bishop also now covers that square. Well, let's get the king out. Now, a lot of bishop of opposite color endgames are drawn, but this is a rook and bishop and a bunch of pawns. So there's still some play left, But you also have to be mindful that if we trade the rooks, then there's a very good chance that we'll have a drawish position. I mean, if I go rook e2, I'm basically saying, hey, let's have a draw. But I'd like to think that I'm playing to win. Okay, let's get that pawn supporting b4, because I'm thinking if I play d5, well, I got to be careful because this would attack two things at once. Okay, he's looking at this square, but I think I could just ignore that for now. Just hit the bishop. Yeah, good move, because now he's probably going to go in here, so can I just go bishop e3? It's going to be challenging getting these pawns rolling. Okay, let's push this. If he does go bishop e4, then maybe I can play d5. I'm trying to create a pass pawn. But then again, so is he. Now I could play d6. Maybe I just leave that as a possible move for now. Well, I got to do something, so fortunately, due to the time. Okay, I'm surprised by that. I thought c6 was the way to go. So I didn't take with the pawn. It would have created a passer, but the king blocks the pawn. So I took with the bishop because I'm looking to get more activity. I definitely have more activity for my bishop now. And I'm also looking at more activity for my rook. So I think we can come here. We can win the f6 pawn. I suspect he's going to go win the a3 pawn, though. Wondering if we can win the b7 pawn. I guess he just goes king c6 there. Okay, let's take here. And then we'll try. Okay, that's a good move. So he's going to win the a3. He wants to win it with the rook. Très bien, mon ami. Okay, let's bring the king up because I don't want to keep my king on the first row. Ooh, I don't want to do this because g5. Oh, then I can take the bishop though. Okay. I do got to be aware of that tactic though. Now I could just play here and that effectively signals that I'm going for a draw now, I believe. Oh, he didn't take on b5. I don't know why he didn't take on b5. Okay. Well, now I definitely have some chances because these two guys can support each other. That was a good move, not just for the check, but to get out of the line of the bishop, because I always had these c6 ideas. Okay, so I think I can just sack that, because here, 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 he goes back. Then how do I win that? Maybe I throw this in first, and then there. Okay, now I'm not sure. Let's move it just in case. Okay, so he's attacking the bishop. Makes sense. Oh, I almost lost on time there. That was close. Very close. A little too close. All right, we'll take that one. And we'll do a check. And I think we'll get a queen now. Yeah, I think the mistake was not taking the b6 pawn there at the end. I think it was a dead draw at that point. But here the king is going to have to move, and my rook keeps the king out of the a file, so I'll just keep going. Okay, so Chris wants to play a rematch. Let's play. And he wants to go with knight to f3. All right, let's play knight f6. It's generally how I deal with knight f3. Okay, are we going to get a Catalan? Possibility we're going to have a Catalan. I could go g6, but I wouldn't mind some practice with my defense to the Catalan. If he goes d4, he could just go d3, which is a whole different kettle of fish. Now I could play c5 before he's had a chance to play d4. If I do want some practice with the Catalan, I should maybe give him the opportunity to go that route. So d4, castles, and c4 would be Catalan territory. Right now, depending on what white plays, it could be a bunch of different openings. If it goes d3, that's more of a King's Indian attack. Just c4 right away, followed up by either d3 or just c4 by itself. It's more of an English. Doesn't matter what they're called, really. Don't really need to know all the nuances of what the openings are called. It's just I'm just explaining what I've seen over the years of my 30 years of playing. I'm basically conceding that I'm getting old. Okay, so we'll have castles. Okay, and we do have our Catalan. So I looked at this line there the other day. Do you take first or do you play a6? I think it was take first. So we've got here, knight c6, right, and that's the pawn sack. And the difference is, yeah, I guess because the pawn's not on a6. Okay, I think it is taking right away. Now there's a bunch of ways that white can take back. Knight e5 is a common. Queen c2, knight a3. So basically black gives up central control because now the pawn is no longer on d5 and is no longer covering the central e4 square. And white wants to at some point get both pawns in the center. So now this is going to look funny. It looks like I'm just giving up a pawn, which I am. But it's a known line. So Chris has decided to do it this way, which I believe is the more common way to play this. Okay. So a lot of players play takes here. Chris has decided to go knight a3, the idea to take here. So black's pawns are ugly. There's no doubt about that. Black has an open file as compensation. Now, I could ugly up white's pawns, but then I'm giving away the two bishops. White would have the two bishops, but I wonder if it's worth it to give up the two bishops. Yeah, I generally don't like to do that, especially since the game is opening up. This is open, and this guy's got an open diagonal. So maybe just go rook here, take the open file, knight here, and play c5 and get rid of my doubled pawns. I gotta be careful though. Knight a5 is kind of annoying. How do I deal with knight a5? So here, oops, here, c5, knight a5. Yeah, because then they're threatening to jump in here. Do I simply go bishop to d7? might be possible. What if he just jumps into here? Then he's going to grab the two bishops anyway. Yeah, but I must admit, I haven't faced knight a3 before. I've just taken on this line fairly recently, so this is good. This is good practice. Rook b8 here. Go bishop a6. Knight a5. I don't know what that accomplishes. How do I deal with knight a5? Maybe I gotta play... Maybe instead of an immediate c5, I play bishop to d7. And then on knight a5, I could always play rook b6 or knight d5. Is bishop a6 an idea just to hold on to that pawn? Probably not, because of queen a4, hitting the bishop, and then he's going to take next move. Well, if I do decide to give up the two bishops, I suppose the only way to justify it would be to try to hold on to this guy. Okay, well, let's try it. See what happens. So I'm thinking knight d5 here. Actually, bishop a6. No, knight d5 makes more sense to me. Blocking that bishop. Also, I have ideas of either pushing or playing knight b6, holding on to the c4 pawn. Now, if queen a4, go knight b6, takes, rook b8. And we're still holding on to this guy. Threatening here, and bishop b7. All right, folks, I'm just going to get up and go get some water. Be right back. All right. Well, good thing I didn't lose any time there because Chris is having to think. So yeah, I don't really love that I gave up the two bishops. I would have preferred not to, and maybe there was a way to play that without having to give them up, but we'll try this. Hello, Alex 3000 Elo. I'm not sure I'll be up for another game after this. But definitely in an upcoming stream, if you're around, absolutely. Got to take care of some things around the house here. It's early morning, so I'm not expecting a long stream. So Queen A4 to me seems to be the natural move. Now, if he goes E4, he's blocking his bishop, but I think it also gives up the D pawn because if he plays Queen D2, I've got this idea of queen takes queen pawn, queen takes queen, knight E2 check, and I would fork king and queen. So I don't imagine he's going to fall for that. Actually, I could use that tactic to my advantage, perhaps. Queen A4, knight C3, queen takes C4, queen takes D4, queen takes queen, knight takes E2 check, and then I come back here. Huh, it's interesting. He would still have the two bishops, though. Well, maybe with E5 I'd be okay there. That's an interesting position. I mean, also, simply what I might do is queen A4. I'm just realizing knight B6. Sorry, queen A4, knight B6, queen takes C6. I could just take on D4 because originally I thought that he could take on the corner, but my knight is also holding on to the rook. Of course, with my queen on D4, I could take his rook too. Yeah, so this might be one of those rare situations where in an open board, white doesn't really have uh, an advantage with the two bishops. I mean, there's no doubt that this bishop's a monster. This guy's not really doing much at the moment, though. Well, maybe if the bishop were on A3, claiming that diagonal. Well, there you go. Maybe he heard us. Okay, so he wants to most likely play bishop A3. Now, I do have this idea of winning the D pawn. So knight here, and well, what about queen C2? And then if I take bishop E3, queen F6, bishop takes rook B8. Yeah, don't know if I want to do that just yet. I'd like to get this rook out of this line because I don't want him to be able to play bishop takes c6 with tempo. But of course, if I go rook b8, he's going to play bishop a3 with tempo. So, what's my move? b8, bishop a3, rook e8. What's his idea? Bishop here, attacking this guy. Also solidifying this guy. It's possible. Oh, what about rook b8, bishop a3, playing knight b4? So giving that up, and then he takes here. So 7 pawns, I've got 7 pawns. This guy would be a bit of a nuisance. Ooh, can I play queen f6 so that on bishop a3 I can go rook d8? Because that would be a nice spot for the rook. If I just go queen e7, taking that square away. Queen e7 here. Yeah, then I don't have this tactic against the d4 pawn. If I go knight b6, he can kick me. Queen here, e4, knight here. Queen e2. No. Feels a little loose. Hello! Welcome. Welcome to the chat. Welcome to the stream. Here. 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 Oh, I suppose he could go bishop here, but then that gives me a5. What if I play a5 here so that on bishop a3, knight here, if he does take, well then I've got 2 protected passers. I kind of like that idea. All right, let's give it a try. I don't have time to analyze everything here, so give that the old honest try. It also fixes the a4 pawn, so the a4 pawn can't move any further. So if I were to play knight b6, I wouldn't have to worry about any a5 moves. Now, it also, conversely, fixes my pawn on a5, so it could be a weakness down the road. So I'm thinking if he goes here, here, and if he wants to do the trade, bishop takes, I might even just sacrifice my rook and play either bishop a, yeah, probably bishop a6. And if he takes here, here, I've got control of this diagonal, and I've got those 2 passers. Yeah, the only thing about those two passes is he can play a3 at any moment, and I'd have to move this guy. So I'd have the two passes, but it would create a hole on c3, allowing him to blockade. It's the downside of moving your pawns, but I think that would be a worthy sack. Of course, I don't have to sack the rook if I were to do that. I mean, I could simply just go rook b8. That might be just as good. Then bishop d7 next move. I don't have to sacrifice anything. I don't know, the vulnerability of my my pawns there, whether or not I'll be able to hold on to them is a big question. All right, so this is game number 2. The first game went in my favor, although it was, I think it was objectively a draw at the end. I think it was a fairly even game throughout, actually. It wound up being a rook and bishop of opposite colored endgame with a bunch of pawns. And unfortunately, Chris allowed me to have a protected pass pawn when he could have just taken a pawn. I'm not sure why he didn't do the recapture. So, okay, bishop a6 makes sense here. Just to develop and also hold on to that pawn. So I'm going to try to hold on to that pawn for dear life. Now I wonder if I've got, well, I suppose he could just defend the pawn. Okay, so I suspect now he's readying for e4 and maybe bishop to f1 to grab this. But I will be able to play knight b6, holding on to the pawn that way if I want to do that. Or the more aggressive knight b4. Question is, how do I want to navigate this? So I go knight b6, then this guy is very vulnerable. In response to e4, that is, knight b6. However, if I go this way, I mean, he could get kicked, and then he doesn't have any squares. Well, I suppose he's got this square. Okay. Okay, let's go queen f6, just to keep pressure on the d4 square. Now I do realize I may be lining up the queen with the bishop, but I want to play rook b8 at some point. Maybe even this rook, and then have both rooks like this. Maybe I shouldn't be so concerned about this guy. If I drop that guy, so be it. I'm thinking after bishop b2 I can play, whoops, bishop b2 I can play rook b8. The idea that if he goes here, and if his thinking was to someday, I suppose he could try that. Then I get, okay, no, then I get the rook in the corner. Okay, anyway, if the bishop does come here, I'm going to move my rook here so that at least both of these major pieces are looking at that b2 square, and if need be, I could always sack the rook at some point. And like I've said before, rooks like open files, so this rook is really not doing much at the moment. In fact, maybe it would be to this rook's benefit if this is not on the board, because then I would have some play against that pawn. I don't think I should be so materialistic to hold on to this guy. Playing queen f6, I free this rook up. Gives this rook the opportunity to go to d8 or b8 if I want. Okay, so he's gone bishop to a3. Now the question is, do I want to create those passers? He grabs that. Yeah, I'm just concerned with this bishop being there that this c4 pawn might be hard to defend. So if I go here, is it really that bad if I allow his bishop to get to c5? I don't know. I guess the one thing about this is if he goes rook b8, then I can't do this right away because he's got two attackers. So I'd have to bring my other rook here. Okay. Well, these 15-minute games go quick, I tell you. I like the idea of rook to d8 because if he does kick my knight, whenever I move the knight, I am also attacking the d pawn twice. Again, I do have the option to come back here if I want. Here, maybe e5. Then what? Oh, what was the opening? It was a Catalan. So we'll go over the game after the game. I think my friend wants to analyze, so basically, okay, yeah, bishop there makes sense. Solidifying the bishop on that square. Let's get the other rook involved. Finally get it out of the line of sight of the light squared bishop. Yeah, so the Catalan, I had a pawn on d5, I took here, and then I played knight c6, and my opponent had a knight on e5, and he took, and I took back with my pawn. So that's how I got the tripled pawns. Okay, so now the question is, can I just do this? I mean, I suppose you could just ignore it. But if he takes and takes, I would have those connected passers. Is it to my benefit to try to trade the queens? I suppose if I go queen g6, he could play bishop here. e5 is interesting, just attacking here. Well, I think this is natural, so let's see how he's going to address this. If he does take, I mean, I do get rid of the two bishops. He might sack the rook as well. It's an option. That way he keeps the two bishops. I don't know if that would be his best interest here. I don't think he'd have enough compensation. It's not a real typical situation where you'd sack a rook. If he's going to take it, you take it with the bishop. But he might just go like queen c3 or queen b2. Yeah, I like this line because you get some very interesting games. Lots of imbalances. I mean, black's pawn structure is on the queen side just horrendous. But you get compensation for it with the activity. Okay, so I could play e5. Then he takes, I take, he takes, I take, check there. Let's look at that. There, check. I could do it that way. Yeah, e5 looks interesting. Let's give that a try. Do I take on d4 first? I suppose I have to, right? Oh, then he's got bishop e7. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I think I miscalculated here. Okay. Well, it's kind of too bad. These 15-minute games do go by quick. It's kind of too bad with such a tactical position that we didn't have time to really analyze it. Okay, so I'm holding on to the bishop this way. He can take here, but I'll just go queen d6. And with this center pawn mass, he took that one. Okay, well, there you go. That's what I mean. Kind of a his queen is the most active piece. It's probably best for me to trade. Okay, let's create a spot for the king. Maybe I should go rook b8, take the file. Oh, my friend, he flagged. It's unfortunate. That was a very interesting game. So let me check with him. He wants to do a post-mortem. Just sent him a message. I'm waiting to hear back. So, yeah, at the end here, the engine is giving an evaluation of -3, which seems to make sense to me. I mean, this is very good center mass. I mean, we've got a dangerous passed pawn there, but let's actually look at that tactical sequence. So at this point, it says it's equal. So that's interesting. It looked like I may have had a very tiny edge earlier, but for the most part, the game was oscillating between equality. And the engine didn't like my knight b4. It wants me to trade first. Why? I guess to take... Seems a little unintuitive to just give up a file like that, but I guess white doesn't have any infiltration squares. All those squares are covered by black pieces. So h6 is what the engine is saying. g6 seems more natural to me, because this bishop could go to e4, and if I go h6, bishop e4 would cover the h7 escape square. Okay, but I played knight b4, and queen d2 was a mistake apparently. So here, I think that would have been uncomfortable to face, but maybe this was the best way. Although, okay, I guess the problem is the d4 pawn is hanging here. But even still, the engine is just -1.5, so still lots of game left to play. Let me see. So we're going to see if we can get Chris onto the stream here. Let's see, I'm going to call him. See if this is going to work. Hello, Chris. Hello, Chris.
Hey, Aaron. How you doing?
You hear me okay?
Yeah, I can.
Awesome. And I think people should be able to hear you too, so this is good. So, is there anywhere in particular you want to look at in this second game, or?
Um, yeah, let me think. So the second game, Yeah, I let it get. I mean, well, I'm trying not to look at the computer analysis here. The In the beginning of the game, um, I misplayed the move order here.
Oh,
I used to play this.
just a sec here, Chris. I'm going to see if I can give you. We're not seeing you move the pieces, so let me see. I think there's a way to do that here.
You may have to make it a study.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, let's do that. I'll create a study. Create study. There we go. And then I'll have to add you. And I should be able to add you as contributor. There we go. Now you should be able to move all the pieces.
Yeah. Okay. Here. Let
Yep.
me just.
Yeah, we see them now.
Okay. Um, yeah, I wasn't sure what you were going for. Um, it looks like you're trying to be as flexible as possible.
Yes.
I didn't I didn't I didn't prepare anything for this match. I mean, I spent like maybe 30 minutes looking a little bit like what you kind of play, but I didn't prepare any special lines. I just didn't want. I wanted to make sure I didn't get like super surprised by anything.
Sure.
Um, and this line, I mean, you playing in this very flexible way was a bit surprising to me because I don't think that you normally play this way as black against d4. So I mean, I have some experience playing Catalan. It was my main repertoire for a long time,
Yeah.
but probably not in the last like 4 or 5 years.
So what I had
And
said,
then,
on
yeah,
stream was that I've just recently looked into this Catalan line. So uh, it's true I don't always go down this path because a lot of the times I'll fianchetto my bishop when white has done the same. But in this game, I wanted to see if we could get a Catalan because I'm trying to get more practice with that line.
yeah. Well, it's well, we certainly did. I think actually my the well, it's kind of irrelevant for this game. I think normally, recently, I'm playing d3 in this position.
Okay,
Um,
so
but
King's
it's a little
Indian
bit better.
attack.
Yeah, it's better when you've already committed c5. And here you haven't done that. So I thought, okay, I'll just go into something that I used to play and it should be okay.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, you wanted a Catalan, so you got it. You played a main line, and I played the old main line. Nobody's really playing this way anymore. It's kind of was like I guess it was popular
I
15 years ago.
I think that. So what's the move instead? Like knight a3?
No, Queen C2.
Oh
Queen
yes,
C2
Queen c2.
is a huge
Right.
main line. It's like everybody's playing Queen C2, and sometimes A4,
So
but mainly Queen C2.
and then a6
Yeah, A6, and then it can either be A4 or Queen C4,
like
and
this.
B5. Yeah, this is
Right.
super technical.
Right. And then white tries to what? Play bishop f4 and try to clamp down on the backward spawn here.
I guess there's probably many ways of playing. I'm not that familiar. I don't because I don't typically play this Queen C2 line, so
Okay.
I don't know all the ideas. I'm not any kind of like opening expert. Uh, but yeah, I just know that Queen C2 is like I think if you want to play this way as black, you would expect Queen C2 in probably like 3 out of 4 times that you get this position.
Yeah.
At 95, no one's recommending it. Like none of the current courses on the Catalan recommend 95 anymore.
Oh, is that right? Okay. That's funny
Yeah.
because everybody at this point has played 95 against me. So I guess
Well, that's
I'm just meeting those players that like 95.
yeah. I like 95, and then there's actually a couple of different ways. So knight c6 is your move. I can move the pieces, I guess. Actually, here bishop takes c6 is really interesting too.
Absolutely.
Um,
You can take either way. Yep.
yeah. but I like this line, and it's been so long that I forgot it. Actually, the move order is very important here. So knight d5 or knight here. All of this is normal. Knight d5, and then it's very important to play queen d or no, queen a4, I guess.
Okay.
The goal is to get the queen to a5. The queen on a5 is just like the ideal square for that piece,
Okay.
and I missed. I think this knight d5 move I don't normally see. Most players go bishop a6, and so that's why I was a little bit confused. I spent like 4 or 5 minutes on this
Yes, you did.
because I had an idea of what I was trying to strive for, but I definitely was not like recently familiar with the move order. So knight d5, and then I hesitated on queen a4. Obviously, your knight b6 is your idea, and I should just play queen a5 there, I guess.
Was there
Queen
something that
a4.
you saw after queen a5 here that gave you pause?
No, not really. I just wasn't. Um, no, I'm just not familiar with the details at this point. So
Okay, that's fair enough because
I
I'm in
can't.
the same
Yeah,
boat, right? I mean, this is the first time that
yeah.
I've faced knight a3 on move 9.
I think knight a3 is definitely the main line. I mean, in the
Okay.
in the database, it's 64% of games are knight a3, and the next most played move is only 14%.
Okay. People have played just bishop takes pawn against me, but I mean, it makes sense,
Yeah,
right? I
so
mean,
that's pretty. Bishop takes pawn is pretty soft. Like it's a pretty weak move actually. That
yeah,
indicates that white doesn't know what they're doing.
yeah, I would agree because I mean, you're basically developing black's rook for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, knight a3. I mean, because that was the first time I'd faced this, I really had to think. I didn't want to give up the two bishops, but I saw the knight after knight takes c4 going into knight a5 and really being problematic for me.
I think it's almost forced to take the knight.
I felt
Otherwise
so,
you're
yes.
just going to be worse. Yeah,
Yeah, I felt
I
so.
think
So
so.
that's why I did it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was a good decision since you're not familiar with the position. You played it pretty well. Um,
It looked like it was fairly level though, for a lot, up until like move 20 and change. Um, so I'm not exactly sure when things changed. A4 makes sense. I mean, you want to get your bishop out, right?
Yeah, but it's wrong. A4 is wrong in this position for sure. So A4 is like it's the first opening mistake, and it's not like I don't think it's any kind of really terrible, horrible losing move. But the thing is that the plans completely change, and my familiarity with the position is basically no longer there. Like
Right.
after A4, because like this knight D5 move, I'm not familiar with it, and what happened like after a4, I no longer have a route to get my queen to a5. Like I can't play queen d2 because you have c3,
Right.
um, and that's what I don't know why I didn't just play queen a4, but um,
I think that happens to us though, right? We will get a little flustered if somebody plays a move that we're not so familiar with, and if we do have an idea that we've seen before, we can even still sometimes hesitate to play it, right? I mean, I've done that lots of times.
yeah, it's exactly what happened here. Um, and a4 is quite a problem. Also, like a5 is I should not let you play a5 because if you get bishop a6, that's okay. But if the bishop is in front of your pawn, it's obviously much less attractive for you than putting the bishop on a6 when you've already got the pawn on a5.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
after that, I was just like, ah, shit. I already knew that I made a pretty significant opening mistake, and then it's just sort of hard in a rapid game to like come up with a new plan or recalibrate. Um,
Yeah,
I
it's
knew that
kind
I
of.
wasn't like,
I was saying that it's kind of too bad, especially when things got tactical here. That we only played a 15-10 because it would have been nice to have like a good 15-minute think on all the possibilities.
yeah, well, I'd be open to playing longer games with you, but honestly, the issue right now is like timing. So it's 11 p.m. here where I am, and I'm only playing at this time because that's like I can only play when my son goes to sleep.
Yep, no, that's
So longer
understandable.
game, yeah.
It's
Um,
understandable.
but anyway, no, I mean, 15:10 is a good time control. I usually like this time control, and there's no yeah, nothing to really
Oh, just one
nothing
thing I
to
wanted to show. I alluded to this on stream, but just to show. Um, so if a move like e4, white does have to be careful because I could play a bit of a trick here with queen d2. I always have queen takes d4,
uh-huh.
and just to show everybody, I get the queen back with the knight fork. So I pick up a pawn that way. So there was a little bit of a
Yeah,
venom in the position. So you correctly did not allow that. You went with a4, which is
E4 is
logical.
it's logical, but it's not strategically good. Like it makes sense, but it doesn't actually work out here. And E4 is a move that I would like. I really don't want to play at all. So it is not something that I was seriously considering at this moment. Like it
Yep,
needs to be prepared.
yep,
So
agreed. So I chose a5.
I
I
think
was
it's a
also
good move.
looking at queen e7, but I like this idea with a5 reinforcing my knight if it were to hop on b4.
Yeah, I think A5 must be like the main way to kind of I won't exploit is too strong, but like to take advantage of the inaccuracy of A4. A5 is a very strong move, and yeah, it's a bit unfortunate. It's hard to play white here, actually. I don't really, although the position optically looks kind of okay, but I don't really know what I'm supposed to do. Um,
Well, engine is showing that it's equal here, but I mean that's only for the engine, right? I mean it's
yeah,
fun.
yeah,
It's
but like
funny.
what? Like it's all about plans, right? I mean, you gotta have an idea how to. I'm if you're not an engine, then you know, coming up with something in 10 minutes is very hard.
Well,
Like what exactly, how are you supposed to move your pieces?
it's interesting. I'm just going to do a plug because I just got this book the other day, Rock Solid Chess. It's by Sergei Tivyakov, and the very first chapter he compares human chess versus computer chess. And you know what you had just talked about made me think of his book because, yeah, the engine is showing equals, but if you're not quite sure what the plans are, you don't feel like it's equal, right?
Yeah, there's so many elements that go into how a human feels about a position.
Yep.
I mean, the main thing that the main thing that I'm always looking for is just I just want to have some basic familiarity or some idea of how to progress the position or where my pieces should go. You're kind of comfortable to take a position that is like, you know, maybe objectively even slightly worse if you feel like I have a good handle on what, you know, the next 5 or 10 moves are probably going to look like.
Yes.
Because then you can save so much time on the clock, and you know it just so many other factors go into decision making.
Yes.
Um,
Exactly. Exactly. Queen. Oh, so let's continue. You went Queen C2,
yeah,
Bishop A6, Rook D1. I mean, everything is logical so far. Queen F6, Bishop A3, Rook F to D8, Bishop C5, Rook A to B8, Rook A to B1. I mean, I liked how you played in that. you're doing the right thing in that you're just improving your pieces, right? And that's what we have to do when we come up with a plan. Is like, well, what do I do? And a good strategy is to say, well, what are your worst pieces, and what can we do to improve them? So, in the span of the last few moves, your dark squared bishop's a lot better, and you've got both rooks with a roll now, right? They're not just sitting in the corner.
Yeah, at this point of the game, I thought my position had improved. So I thought that you did not play perhaps as opportunistically as you could have up to this point. I thought queen f6 was a little bit strange.
Okay.
Once I got my bishop to c5, I was pretty sure that I was like definitely not worse.
I was
But
considering queen e7. Is that what the move that you were expecting?
I think, yeah, I was expecting queen e7.
Yeah.
But maybe there are other options as well.
The idea behind queen e7 is that white doesn't have bishop to a3.
Yeah, of course. It's that's why I was expecting it. But it's you still. Yeah, I mean, queen f6 was. I wasn't sure what your. I actually wasn't sure what your idea was. I was maybe. I was thinking maybe you were planning something like you had ideas of knight b4, and if like queen c3, then maybe c5 kind of thing, and you've got my queen's a little loose if it ends up on c3.
Yes. Yeah, I was targeting that diagonal for potential
Yeah,
tactics.
yeah. I figured that was probably what you were going for.
And I wanted to put my rook on d8.
Yeah, but you can put your rook on d8 if you play queen e7 as
Oh,
well.
sure.
Yeah,
But I'm just explaining what my thinking was.
yeah, yeah. I mean, nothing. I didn't see anything wrong with queen f6. It just wasn't what I expected.
Yeah,
And anyway, yeah, like I say, bishop c5. I thought it's probably a pretty stable position.
I think so. But it does get
And
more tactical here in the next few moves. So it looks like
so here
queen
you
d2.
also, yeah, queen d2. Um, so queen d2. Yeah, I was wondering if you could just play c3 here.
Yeah, and that's
Did you
what
consider c3?
no, I didn't, and that's what the engine is recommending. So, yeah, c3, queen
So
takes.
that's why I played like when I played on this move. Yeah, so I used almost all of my remaining time on this move because I saw that if I played queen d2, that c3 was probably your best response.
Yep.
But I didn't really, the other options I didn't think were really working, like queen c3, knight takes a2. Um,
Could you
and
play
I
queen
didn't
takes a?
see,
Could you play queen takes a5 there though? So queen c3, knight takes a2, queen takes a5.
yeah,
Because you are hitting my bishop, right?
yeah, yeah, maybe that.
But
So what, is there a better move than knight takes a2?
that's what I'm
There's
curious
something
about.
else there?
No, that's the engine's first line.
Is knight takes a2?
Yeah, because I guess you are threatening to win a pawn here, right? By taking everything on b4.
Yeah, if I get everything back on b4, then I may have ideas of playing for an advantage too, because you still got so many weaknesses.
Absolutely. And you'll have passed a pawns.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
so
yeah,
it
I mean,
looks
I was
it looks like
1 minute 30 here. So what
yeah,
happens after queen e5?
yeah, and this is what I was saying is that it's unfortunate that we were low on time when it got tactical. So engine is saying c3 with the idea of the fork.
Yeah, let's see, play c2.
So
Yeah,
you exchange the rooks, and
you
I
can still
guess
just play c2, I guess.
in the previous position,
Oh, can you just play c2 right now?
well, it's white to play. So
Oh
if
yeah, of course. Okay, so I mean, if queen takes bishop, then c2, right?
correct, so that's why I
Yeah.
think
So
bishop
that's why this
a4.
is. Okay, bishop e4. Yeah.
And so you're going to lose e2, but maybe that doesn't matter so much. It is quite tactical. You can reply with here because my rook is loose. So Engine is giving this as equals, but
Yeah.
Black is currently up a
Good,
pawn.
good. One of us is going to make a game-losing blunder very soon, I think. So.
Yeah, I think this would be tough for White, but objectively, according to the almighty Engine, it is equals. But yeah, it looked like this was the best path. I wonder
Okay.
if my
Well,
I wonder if my e5 was a blunder.
I think it is. I think e5 is a blunder, and I just misplayed it. So
Okay,
I think if you play e5, I needed to play a3.
you're right. That's actually what the Engine says. Wow, I never even considered a3 here.
Yeah, I think you've got some minor problems here now.
Yeah, it looks like I got to play c3. No, e takes. What's going on here? So if we take c3, queen c2. Yeah, it's not going to be enough. You're going to be able to undermine this at some point.
And I'm up a piece.
Exactly. You're up a piece.
I mean, yeah, I think this looks pretty comfortable for white.
So instead of sacking the knight, can we give up this pawn? Okay, I was looking at knight d5 here, but it still looks good for white. Queen takes a5. That's the problem with queen takes a5. You're always hitting my bishop.
Mm.
Yeah, this does look better for white. Yeah, no, I totally didn't consider a3 at all.
Yeah. Well, we
But
both
that's
had no time. We were both at under 30 seconds. Not no
ex
time, but very little time. I mean,
exactly.
it's. I also didn't play a3, so
Yeah, and I think at this point, once I have the two pawns
now
like
it's
that,
over. Yeah, I think
yeah,
it's pretty much. I think it's pretty easy for you now. So.
yeah, I think so. Did you want to look at the first game as well? Do you have time
Yeah, the
or?
first game. I have time. I have time. The first
Okay.
game was. Well, it was a tragedy. I mean, Black is better. I thought Black was better throughout the game until it was just an even end game, and
Yeah,
I
the end,
missed.
the end,
I just made a really terrible move in the end game.
the
I
end
didn't
game.
take your B pawn.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. The end game
Yeah, yeah. No,
seemed to me to
I
be
it's like a crazy blindness kind of thing. I don't know why, but I was a bit disappointed that it came down to this. Um, you know, I won't say drawn, but equal end game, because I thought I was better before that. But I don't know. I can't even explain why I didn't play King takes B5. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, we'll take a look. I'm just gonna have to feed the dog, so I've just added you to the study, and I'm just gonna
Yeah,
step away for just a minute, okay?
no worries. Yeah.
Be right back. Okay. Yeah, we're back. So let's take a look at the first game. Um, so I wasn't sure whether to play the King's Gambit or not. I've been dabbling with it. I think it produces some fun games. So I said, what the heck?
Yeah, I mean, um, I had, like I said, I spent about 30 minutes yesterday just getting an idea of what you might play. I thought there was probably a 1 in 3 chance that I was going to get a King's Gambit. I thought you were going to play B4, to be honest.
Oh, the Sokolsky, yeah.
Yeah, because the reason I thought you were going to play B4 is because recently all my E5 games I'm playing the Petrov, and I figured you probably wouldn't want to go for a Petrov.
Right,
Um,
right.
and so I was like, well, he's either going to go King's Gambit or B4. He might go for a Petrov if he's like, I don't know you very well, Aaron. If you're the kind of guy who like really likes preparing openings, then you could probably find something in the Petrov and have me walk right into it. But
Yeah,
I'm barring that. I was like, yeah, it's gonna be a King's Gambit or a B4. I did not prepare anything in the King's Gambit. This is my normal line to play D5, and I actually made one comment. I only made one kibitz in the 2 games, and that's that when you play D4, I was like, okay, well, I know that you did. I'm like 95% sure you didn't prepare any specific opening to play against me, because D4 is not critical. It's not a bad move, but I don't think it's a critical move in this position.
yeah. I'm gonna have to check my resource. I thought it was the recommended move, but maybe Bishop C4 first. I don't know if there's a difference.
Yeah, so I think the main moves that you see here, of course, Bishop C4 is one of them. Um, Bishop B5 is probably the most common, like at higher levels. This is the one that gets played most. Not that you see the King's Gambit a lot.
Right.
and then and then sometimes, especially like in below master level, C4 is is played. An idea, yeah. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. But D4, it just doesn't like. Again, it's a very natural move, of course, but it doesn't interfere with me taking on D5. And I'm not sure. Like, it seems like black is already equal here.
Yeah, I mean, Engine is always generally preferring black in the King's Gambit. But like I said, I'm gonna check my resource. I bought Danny King's Power Play DVD on this, and if I remember correctly, it kind of went like this, where White does play Bishop takes Knight here, but it could be possible that I played D4 in the wrong order. Um,
So I think that must be the case. I'm not an expert. I'm just looking at the Masters database on Lichess. D4 is played in 1% of all master games in this position.
okay, so obviously that is likely not the right one. What's the most popular?
Bishop C4 is seen in 50% of the games, Bishop B5 in 30% of the games, and C4 in 10% of the games.
Yeah, yeah. So Bishop C4, and then are you still going to take back with the knight?
Yeah, definitely. Bishop C4, I'm taking on D5.
And maybe I can castle here.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Pretty normal. And here I was normally I will play Bishop E6.
Yep.
Um, there's a lot of ways to play here. I could end up castling on either side, depending on what you do. Um,
Engine is
I'm
given
not
Bishop
very.
B3, which doesn't feel right to me. But I wonder if I can just take now. I mean, this could
Take on
just
D5.
yeah, this could just transpose to the game actually.
Yeah, it might. Let me see.
I mean, if I play D4 now, this is just the game.
Yeah.
Okay, well let's
But
see
what
what
happens?
happened
So
then.
if you play d4, no, this it's not the same as the game.
No?
No, because in this position,
Well, I guess I don't have to play d4
oh,
here.
I guess it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Well, there is a difference. I haven't played d4 yet, so I suppose I could play knight c3 instead.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, we're getting off track. What do you want to look at?
Well,
After.
let's just have a look at the middle game.
Okay.
So here, most I've seen bishop takes. I don't know why I was surprised by queen takes. I wasn't able to punish it, so um, yeah, that it kind of was like a Scandinavian for you.
I don't play the Scandinavian, so it's hard to say. My here, so obviously, if you play knight c3, I can play bishop b4,
Yes.
and I was
So you mean before I castle?
yeah. Well, if you play knight c3 immediately,
Yes.
yeah, I'll play bishop b4,
Right.
and I think I should be happy for you to block your c pawn,
Yes.
even if I will move my queen again after you castle, but if you it, I'm not sure what White's plan is if they don't get, the c pawn rolling and try to take over in the center. So that's what I was like. Yeah, I don't think you can play knight c. I don't think knight c3 is any kind of punishment.
No.
Um, and yeah, queen d5 also is a developing move because I'm thinking of castling queenside. So it seems just to save time. Uh,
Yeah. So
of course,
what I said on stream was that was the reason why I castled because of bishop b4. And then after knight c6, bishop takes, and then you castled. This is very similar to a Scandinavian, with the difference being that white does not have the knight on c3 yet. And so that allows me to play c3 here, right? But even then, I mean, it does look more pleasant for black, no doubt.
so you're saying that the fact that you can play c3 as an option, and you're comparing it to a Scandinavian, and the fact that you have c3 as an option instead of already having the knight on c3 is a nice bonus for white. That was what you said on stream.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly like that's the downside of having the knight on c3 is that black has all this pressure on the d4 pawn. And if you have your knight on c3, well, yeah, I guess normally you're not able to play knight e2, but I guess in this position maybe it's okay. I mean, it is not quite a Scandinavian because black has the e pawn on e6 and often has the capability to play e5. So it is not an exact comparison, but I was just saying that there are some similarities. That's all.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't c3 c3 struck me as a bit soft here, honestly. But I'm looking at the database, and c3 is played in 100% of games. There's only 3 games in this position, and c3 was played in all of them. So during the game, I was a little bit surprised, just because it seems to give black, like it doesn't put any questions to black really. So I
Hmm.
get a free hand to decide how I want to develop.
Yeah.
Um,
So
then I
what was
guess the other thing about C3 is that it does prepare, and you didn't do this, but it also prepares the idea of, you can play B4,
yes.
potentially B4, B5, in which case C3 is a very useful move.
Yeah. What were you thinking about knight c3? You were going to go queen f5 or queen h5?
So if you go knight C3 here, um, I No, I think I was going to play queen c4.
Okay, that's interesting.
Queen f5.
You get the tempo on the bishop. That's what I was
But
thinking.
not really, because my queen's not going to be safe on f5. Like once the bishop moves, I'm subject to a discovery, and I'm going to end up giving that tempo back,
Yeah, that's true.
probably in a less desirable way. So I definitely did not want to go to queen f5, and I need to keep some pressure on d4. I thought I needed to keep pressure on d4.
Yes.
Just to be careful, because there is this knight fork, there's this pawn fork idea on d5 that it doesn't work right now, but the threat, if you can if you can overload one of my pieces or something, that I need to be careful. So I thought queen c4 was what I would play here, but I don't
Okay.
know what the engine says.
So probably knight e2 with the idea of not only adding another supporter of d4, but I also can play c3 and b3.
You mean knight c3? If I go queen c4, you would play knight e2.
Yes.
Interesting.
I think you're right, though. I don't think white is for preference here. I think it's a lot easier to play black.
Yeah, I think that's what I thought. During the game, I was pretty satisfied with the opening. I'm not sure where I gave back
Yeah,
any kind
let's
of
take a look.
yeah.
So bishop e7.
Okay, so c3. Yeah, so here even bishop e7. I was deciding between bishop e7 and bishop d6.
Yep,
Bishop d6, of course. Well, you don't have to exchange.
I
My
would
thought
have.
was that if we do exchange dark square bishops, then your dark squares are around the king side. There are some weaknesses there, but it's also not that easy for me to play. Like I only have a knight to really play on the dark squares.
Yeah. So I figured giving up the two bishops would be to my benefit.
Yeah, and that I also so I didn't want to give up the two bishops, and then bishop e7. Of course, I have some active ideas. Like I'm immediately looking at playing g5,
Yep.
and either g4 straight away or h5, h4, whatever depending on where you go. I think I'll start building an initiative if I'm allowed to get g5. So that's why I
I
played bishop e7.
I even thought here you might consider rook g8 with kind of the same idea of playing g5.
Well, okay, but it seems to me that it's not 100% clear that my rook belongs on g8. It might be very useful already on h8,
Yeah,
and
that's fair. Yep.
on the bishop is certainly going to be useful on e7.
And you do connect your rooks,
So
so makes sense.
yeah,
Now I played knight
because
a3.
if I get to, I'm also looking at h5, right? Like uh, I think the rook on h8, I wouldn't. Rook g8 was not a consideration. I can say, and not that it's a bad move, but I didn't consider it at all.
Now I was surprised that you gave up the two bishops like this, but the engine does approve. It says it's minus one and change, so that's in your favor. Now it wants to play either rook h to e8 or f6 here. What does it say about your move? Because your move made sense.
Am I looking? Are we in the same study? Am I
Oh,
in
you're
the
not.
study with like?
Are you not
Are
seeing the?
you are you moving? Are you moving pieces? Because
Yes,
I think
yes.
I'm only seeing the pieces that I move.
Okay, here. Let me. I'll paste the link to the study that I'm at in the chat here. So that's where I'm at.
Oh, I'm sorry. Um, just a minute. Did you? You don't. you can't send me a DM on. Can you send me a message on Lichess with the link?
Mm-hmm. Just a sec here. Got to be able to re-enable the chat. Where do I go for that? That's interesting. It says other players can message you. So why is my chat disabled?
Okay, I think I'm here now. Well, no, you're not even online. Are you online?
I am.
Yeah, you are.
I'm looking in my preferences.
You're not. You're not in the study that I'm in.
Yeah, I'll be there now.
Okay.
So
So you can see when I move the pieces?
I can now. Yep.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I think we're both here. Yeah, so okay. Knight A3. This was this definitely an interesting moment. I of course, so on one hand, yeah, it was a hard choice. Like my bishop is, it should be, it just looks so much nicer than your knight, you know.
Absolutely.
Like
Yeah.
that knight doesn't seemingly have a lot of potential, and I have the two bishops. My bishop is and it's still, I still have my ideas of like G5 and whatnot, but knight A3 also, you now have a clear plan. So you can play C4. You're threatening C4 and getting the pawns rolling. You may be able to play knight B5 in the future and activate that knight.
Yep.
And what ultimately the reason I exchanged is just that I thought, okay, so yes, my bishop looks so much better than your knight, but after we exchange,
Mm-hmm.
I thought the resulting. So if you just look at the pieces that are left on the board, I have like total domination of the light squares, and I can post up. I can post up on C4 potentially, and we've got a situation where opposite color bishops, and the question is going to be whose king is weaker,
Right.
because they're going to favor whoever is attacking, and I kind of thought that this pressure down the B file, it wouldn't. I thought I was going to be able to, like, it wouldn't going to amount to very much, and the combination of being able to blockade, possibly blockade or have an outpost with on D5 and C4, and yeah, it just, I thought this was interesting, right? So other than I don't really want to allow you to play the C4 and start getting a nice initiative and attacking my king, and this way is more of a structural advantage, so it's like more of a long-term thing. So yeah, I thought let's go for it. I wasn't 100% sure of the evaluation, but it seemed to me that I wasn't going to be worse.
Engine wants to play F6, and then
Yeah, so F6 is was an idea that I had as well, right? Because if I play F6, then it's going to be a little bit harder for you to prevent me from blockading or putting a nice piece on C4. You're going to have to go back to D2, which
yes.
is obviously not super desirable for you. Yeah, F6 also prepares G5 maybe, but
It also
I,
takes away those 2 squares from my pieces, right?
well, the main idea of f6 is to take away, I think, really e5, g5 as well, yes, but e5 being the one that that'd be the main reason that I thought about f6. But yeah, okay, so engine says f6 is better. Obviously that's true.
I thought knight a5 was logical, though. It made sense to me. I mean, it still
Yeah,
says
it
that
seems.
you're for preference. It's minus 0.5, so.
Okay.
So I played queen a4. It says f6, b6 is also possible. Your bishop d7 made sense to me. I like that idea because I imagine, with this pressure on that diagonal, that's good for black.
Yeah, and also, I mean, the bishop on c6 is just like, yeah, I'm,
Oops,
uh,
oops, oops, sorry.
yeah, I mean, the bishop on c6 is like a perfect piece because it's also defending b7, which
Exactly,
is your
yes.
your target. So, um, yeah, so I thought this was okay, but I missed something here. So yeah, 95. I guess you have to play it.
So now you're threatening mate, so I have to address that.
Yeah.
So rook f2, and I mean
And I
my
was
rook is
pretty
terrible
okay.
there.
Yeah, the rook is terrible. So here I'm sure that I'm better. Like there's no, I'm not winning, but I'm just like, yeah, black must have a good move here, and I'm pretty unhappy about f6.
Well,
Um,
that's the engine's recommendation actually.
yeah, interesting. Because the reason I say that is because bishop takes g7, not a threat. So what actually,
So for example, if you go rook e8, you're saying that white would not be wise to take that because the rook would hit the bishop, and then the rook is adding pressure to the g2 square.
isn't white just lost here already?
I would
Maybe
definitely take black here.
maybe no, maybe you can play c4. But okay, I mean it looks pretty bad for white.
For sure.
Yeah. So that's why I like during the game I couldn't find another useful move, I guess. But the thing about f6 is that it kind of, so you do have this idea of playing c4, and if the bishop, if as long as the bishop is on e5, then d4 is defended, and so the reason I played f6 in a position was to make it harder for you to play c4. But
Yep.
I sort of felt like I was copping out because you can't really like take on g7. So, but then I couldn't find, maybe here. What
I
did
was
I played rook
expecting
h8,
h5 here.
maybe h5. Yeah, h5 looks like a better continuation. I had
Because
16 seconds. It looks like.
yeah, and that's fair, right? With low
Well, it's
time.
not. It's not fair. It's absolutely disgusting that I have 18 seconds on move 18 of the game. That's so I didn't really come to the game mentally prepared. I would I would say full. I'm not. It's not an excuse. I just like. I don't think I really had like my game face because I just played way too slowly. This is not. It wasn't a really difficult position up to this point. Why am I using all this time? I think um, I was using the time because you were also playing very slowly, and
Mm-hmm.
so it somehow made me feel like it's okay. But
Of course,
actually,
I was playing slowly
how can you
because
how can you use
I
your
wasn't
whole
so
clock?
happy with my position.
Yeah, yeah. So h5 is obviously has more of an idea. Like rook e8 it's a good move, but I'm not really increasing the pressure against your king.
And this looks very deadly because white cannot play that or that to checkmate. So yeah, pushing Harry down the board would have been a good idea, I think.
Yeah.
But certainly, I mean, with
Yeah.
16 seconds left, I mean, playing a move like Rook HE8 is logical. You're still better here.
Yeah. 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 Sure. Still better.
And now I thought your next move was purely because of the low time. I don't think if you had 3 minutes left, I don't think you'd play Queen B5 here.
Correct.
Because I
Probably not.
because I felt that you're just trying to you know simplify the position because you're low time.
Um, yes, and I think I miscalculated something because I thought I was going to win a pawn. Um, I can't remember, like through some kind of lateral attack uh, on the third or fourth rank. I thought I was pawn somehow, but it didn't. I wasn't winning. So
Yeah, engine gives
yeah, I
A5
really,
as an
I don't,
idea.
yeah, A5 was a move I considered and I considered it not only on this move but also in the game. Um, all I can say is that I thought about it, but obviously, if the engine says it's the best move, I didn't evaluate it correctly. I wasn't quite sure how to evaluate it. But yeah, I guess in principle, like the queen is very nice on b4. Just moving it from that square is already kind of a victory.
I thought maybe Queen E4, um, with the idea of maybe Queen E3 pinning the rook,
Yeah, yeah,
and also just getting out of the C4 threat, right?
yeah. Um,
In fact, the engine wants me to sack the D pawn.
Interesting.
It
Yeah.
wants it wants to go like this, and then it gives B6, and then D5 was one line. So basically, trade the queens and try to
and give up the deep.
try to survive the ending. But I mean, you would be up a pawn, and you'd have much better pawns because I've got these isolated pawns.
Yeah, it's a bit hard to analyze this, well, I mean, the post in terms of giving a postmortem, because the reality is that there's not a lot of thought going into the moves. You're just kind of your hand is moving
Yeah,
more than the more than like I can say that in this position. So what's kind of comforting is that all of the moves that the engine is suggesting were in my instinct. So in
hmm
this position here, um, I definitely considered a5, queen e4, and the move I played, queen b5. The thing with queen e4 was I didn't see the idea of like queen e4 with the queen e3 to follow. I didn't see what I was doing after queen e4. Like it seemed like you're improving the queen, um, and probably that's enough. But I guess in the way that I think about chess is like if I'm making a move, I'm thinking like what's the follow up,
yeah.
you
Well, what's
know,
the purpose too?
um,
Yep, yep,
and I didn't really see a purpose or follow up to queen e4.
yeah. The only thing I didn't like about Queen B5 was that you're improving my pawn structure, but I understood why you did it. Um, I mean, this is just a drawn endgame now.
Yeah, so um I don't know why I thought I was winning a pawn after bishop a4, but obviously that was a hallucination. So
Maybe
I wouldn't have
because
done this otherwise.
maybe it was because you didn't think I could leave the first rank. Maybe you thought that was me.
Uh, yeah, no, no, yeah. I mean, it was something like that. Like, I mean, I was aware that you could. defend with rook f1, but it just didn't really calculate. Like I didn't clearly calculate, obviously. I think it was more that I thought after rook e4 I was winning pawn, but it's not. I didn't see. This is the move I didn't see, was rook
Yeah.
f4.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you didn't have rook f4, then I am just winning a pawn here, and it's probably not only I'm winning a pawn, but I also have anyway. You have rook f4. So no point talking about it.
Yeah. But let's go to the critical moment, because I think everything is just, there's no advantage for any side here.
Well, no, these moves are already quite generous. Black's being very generous for you, so I should play h5. Before I play bishop g4, I should play h5.
Sure.
I think.
Then I'd go
And
h4.
yeah, and that's okay. But now I'll play bishop g4, and anyway, it's still probably equal. I'm sure it's just equal. But
Yeah, but now my king can't come up the board as easily. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
your
true.
king can't come up, and I've got rook e4, and I'm not even sure that h4 is correct, honestly, for black or for white, but maybe it is.
Yeah,
Why do you want to play
I'm
h4?
just trying to prevent g5.
I see.
But, maybe h3 is
But allowing me
perfectly
to just take
acceptable
over
here.
g4 is because the bishop on g4 is it's just working so well with the rook on e8.
Yeah, I would agree. I think h3 is better because I always have bishop h2 in response to g5.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
just
mean, hard to evaluate clearly.
yeah, I
Probably
just
none of these moves are like any kind of game losing.
yeah, I was
Yeah,
surprised here
here I've
that you
already.
didn't play c6. I mean, you took, which is fine too, but I was expecting c6. Because your king is such a good blockader. But I mean, it makes sense to trade pawns too. But I guess from my perspective, you just increased the activity of my bishop, so I was happy about that.
Yeah, yeah,
And I thought if you played
yeah. This is
c6,
where I lost control of the game. I definitely did not play this. I mean, I lost the game from here, so which is crazy. But
yeah,
um,
because I think even here you just stay on the e file and you could just move your bishop back and forth if you had to. Even just leave
yeah,
your
I
bishop,
mean,
even just
there
leave your
must be
rook on e4. Say f5.
I don't know what to say, Aaron. There must be like a half a dozen completely different ways to just hold this position.
Yeah, yeah. I
Uh,
mean, your king is just so effective there, and as long as you don't allow me to evict it with a rook e7, that should
yeah,
be a dead draw. But yeah,
yeah.
I just want to go to the critical position, and I was just curious. Did you have an oversight? So even here, everything's drawn. Uh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, you didn't take the b pawn. What were you thinking here?
I just had a hallucination.
Oh, okay.
I didn't. I don't know what to say. Immediately after I moved my king, I was like, oh my god, why didn't I just take the b pawn?
Yeah.
There's no other explanation. Like it. Um,
Yeah, because I think at this point, then white is winning.
yeah.
But let's go back because it's interesting. When I was moving the pieces here, the evaluation was in your favor. Where here? So it says it's slightly better for black. It wants to play bishop to f3. So you're protecting b7. Okay. Um, and I guess the idea is you're also going after h3 with bishop g2. Yeah, that makes sense. So if I go rook f6, bishop g2.
What if you went?
Yeah,
What if you just went king g5?
king g5. Bishop d5, hit the rook. Where do I move the rook? Because your rook is currently hitting that.
Yeah, so rook f6.
Rook f6. Yeah, it's probably what happened would be an exchange of pawns, right?
I don't really see anything for black here. But well, yeah, I mean, it still looks pretty drawish to me.
I think
The only thing is that your king is going to be pretty out of play.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's probably just one of those positions that, yeah, the engine might say it's minus 1.5, but it's still a draw. It wants to play bishop c6 for some reason, which it's not really logical to me.
Bishop c6 is logical because it prepares king takes b4, and you don't have c6 with check.
Yeah, I guess I don't understand why. I think this is also playable. It looks like it's playable too. It's just going to be a draw. It says c6, bishop takes, or king takes. Well, maybe this is objectively a draw, but it looks more pleasant for black. Black can press.
Yeah, I think that black can press here, but I may be able to play press even more if I somehow keep your c5 pawn, because if I play bishop c6 first, and I'm able to take b4, yeah, if I'm able to take b4, we trade off the 2 pawns on the king side. I now have the passed a pawn, and your c pawn is still kind of weak.
Maybe
it's going to be harder for you to hold that, right?
Yeah, maybe I've got to hold on to the h pawn.
Yeah, you probably cannot allow to trade off the kingside pawns. And here, maybe rook g3. Okay, so let's say I just go rook g2.
Yeah, actually, engine is it's given closer. Okay, it's come back to minus 1.5, 1.2. I was going to say, like,
tough for white.
It does, because my king is cut off, so I can't take your g6 pawn. Ah, okay, so it wants to do it this way. Interesting. It wants to go bishop h6, takes, bishop g5. This still looks quite scary for white. a5.
Probably okay because my bishop is the wrong color. But first of all, this bishop h6, bishop g5, I would be that looks very hard to find, especially in a blitz game. That looks like kind of an only move sort of sequence to. Maybe it's not the only move, but that's a good idea, but it is hard to find. I wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah, I don't care what the engine says. This looks this would be very tough to play as white.
Yeah, so all of this is to say that I do see the logic of bishop c6 instead of rook takes h3. Yeah.
So what about
and
this?
Bishop f3.
Because here's one line that it's giving. Now it wants to play c6 so that the bishop holds on to b4.
Yeah, c6 is is a very important resource in this whole endgame.
Okay, so I split your pawns. That's the idea. Okay. Yeah, now that they're split, it's a little easier to draw. But do you have to give that up? Like, is there a way? I guess the problem is you can't take with the king because I have c6 check the
Yeah,
bishop.
c6, king takes is losing. That's why bishop c6 is a move.
So if bishop c6 in this position and then takes. But see, this is different than what we looked at before, I think, because I have the h pawn. Yeah, definitely would be one of those endgames that uh, you'd think that you'd see in a book somewhere. Looks to be an instructive one. But
Yeah, this is interesting.
yeah, it is. Well, Chris, I think I'm going to have to go to wrap this up because it's getting close to lunchtime here. So thanks very much for the games, and maybe we can do this again sometime soon.
Yeah, I'd like that, Aaron. Thanks for the games. I'm sorry that they ended the way that they did without like a hard fought finish. But some of the ideas were pretty interesting.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm sure we'll play some more interesting games in the future.
Great.
Okay.
Okay, it's good to catch up and good to touch base after so many years. I mean, I don't know, we never really knew each other that well, but I definitely have a memory of seeing you at some tournaments, and I didn't play a lot. I didn't play a lot of tournaments really in my life, but even when I was a kid, and I did meet you, but once or twice I recall.
Yeah, yeah. No, it is good to catch up. So let's do this again pretty soon.
Okay. All
Okay.
right. Take
Talk
care.
talk to you later, Chris. Okay, everybody. So we're gonna wrap that up. My belly is grumbling here, so you have to respect the belly. So hopefully you found that interesting. I sure did. It was a lot of fun. And next stream will be Tuesday for Title Tuesday. That's the planned stream, unless I'm feeling optimistic and I want to stream either later tonight or tomorrow. But if I do, you can always check out my social media, Twitter, or our Discord channel, because that's where I post when I'm about to stream, so you can stay up to date. Okay, well, that's it for now, folks. So we shall see you next time.